you, Representative. Representative King.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, my good friend, my colleague from West Georgia just referred a moment ago to Washington, D.C. operating as government by gimmick. I'll tell you what is government by gimmick. It's these 4 bills that we're debating. So, we believe that any federal court is really going to give over to Utah all federal lands. Now I know, and you know, Madam Speaker, that ain't happening. It ain't happening. We all know it's not happening. I appreciate the chance to be a voice for Utah citizens on this issue because, as my good colleague from Cottonwood Heights got up earlier and said, our constituents don't want us chasing this because they know it's not happening. And someone needs to be pretty direct in saying that. My good colleague from Centerville said, I hope we don't manage these federal lands as poorly as the federal government does when we get a hold of it. We'll do a better job because these federal lands are so important to us. They're right here with us. They're critical. I'll tell you something else that's critical. And it was alluded to by my good friend from Ogden just a moment ago. Kids are our natural resource. How well have we been taking care of our kids the last 10 or 15 years in terms of education funding? There's a question. Do we really have confidence that if we get these federal lands back, we're going to treat them any better than we treat our kids in terms of how we fund public and higher ed? That's a cause for concern. My good friend from Cedar City, he says, I think the Supreme Court will throw this thing out faster than the time we take to debate it. I think he happens to be right. And I appreciate his honesty. But he goes on to say, well, why not take a shot, as my good friend from Ogden just said. Here's why. It'll take years to get the answer to this question, maybe decades. Number one. Number two, it's going to be mighty expensive. Millions of dollars. We see a bill that's going through this session right now that wants to divert millions of dollars from severance tax funds for this caper. Smart? Not so much. So here's my question. What are you prepared to do for our kids in the meantime? And you know, I ask that question a lot. And the answer that I get over and over again is a lot of silence, a lot of crickets, a lot of, oh, we can't ask anybody to bear a greater burden in these times, even those who have done really, really well and are doing really, really well. Can't ask them to belly up to the bar. Can't ask them for a little more help. Wouldn't be right, wouldn't be fair. In the meantime, our kids are growing up before our eyes without the resources, half the resources that the average state in this country spends on its pupils. These are quite honestly ridiculous. They're just one more reason that over and over again we hear from our constituents when they contact us, from the editorial boards of the major newspapers in this state, that the Utah State Legislature is wasting time. Not only are they wasting time, they're engaging in foolish debate over foolish bills. And I happen to agree with them. And I think most of the citizens in the state share that sentiment.
Representative Dean, you have a point of order?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would love to debate the lands bill and not educational funding and the appropriations for educational funding. I'd love to debate the lands bill. I'd like to debate the bill. That's what I'd like to do.
Thank you, Representative Dean. Representative King, to the bill.
I'd love to debate the bill too. And one of the primary things that the sponsor of these, one of the sponsors of these bills talks about is education funding. So there's a clear connection between the two. I think we all know how these votes are going to go, Madam Speaker. It's not a mystery. I'm not up here to change anybody's mind. I'm up here to give voice to what I think the majority of the people in the state of Utah feel about this nonsense.